jury selection continues this morning in the first trial related to the murder of Jacksonville rapper Foolio. His real name is Charles Jones. Jones was shot and killed in Tampa last year at a Holiday Inn while celebrating his birthday. 22-year-old Alicia Andrews is one of 5 suspects in this case. She is charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Tampa police say Andrews helped her boyfriend follow Jones the night he was shot. The court says it is unlikely jury selection will be finished today.
Alicia, the girl, she gave an interview with police right when she got picked up. She's already spoke to them and confirmed, oh yeah, we were here.
Yo, what's good, everyone? Listen, before we dive into this, I need you to understand something real quick. What I'm about to lay out for you isn't just another drill rapper getting caught up in street politics. This isn't just Jacksonville beef that went too far. Nah, this is something way deeper. We're talking alleged bounties, FBI wiretaps, money laundering schemes, RICO investigations, and a confession that might bring down one of the hottest names in hip-hop right now, Alicia Andrews, a woman most people never heard of. Until now, sat down in an interrogation room and allegedly told the feds everything. And I mean everything. Who allegedly paid for the hit, how much money changed hands, the names of everyone involved, the meetings, the planning, the execution, all of it. And the name she dropped at the center of it all? That's what has the entire industry shook. Because if what she's saying is true, this changes everything we thought we knew about how these operations work. So grab your headphones, lock in, and let me walk you through this case step by step, because by the time we're done, you're gonna see this whole situation differently. Let's rewind to where this all began. Foolio, real name Charles Jones, was one of the most polarizing figures in Jacksonville hip-hop. Coming out of 6 Block, he wasn't just making music, he was living it. His lyrics weren't fiction, they were documentation, and that made him a target. June 2024, Tampa, Florida. Foolio is celebrating his birthday. He's in a different city, supposedly away from the drama, just trying to enjoy his day. But according to investigators, his location leaked. People knew where he was staying, and allegedly, that information got passed along to the wrong people. What happened next shook the entire Florida rap scene. Foolio was ambushed and killed outside a hotel. The news spread fast. Social media went crazy. But here's what most people didn't know at the time. This wasn't spontaneous. According to Andrews' alleged confession, this was a coordinated hit that had been in the works for a while. They were just waiting for the right moment, and when that moment came, allegedly, they took it. Now, before we go any further, you need to know who Alicia Andrews is, because her role in all of this is what makes the story so complicated. She wasn't a shooter. She wasn't some high-level player in ATK. She was reportedly just the girlfriend of Isaiah Chance, a man who prosecutors claim was one of the coordinators in this operation. Think about that for a second. She was on the outside looking in, or at least that's what it seemed like. But somehow, she ended up knowing details about meetings, money transfers, and alleged murder plots. Either she was way more involved than anyone thought, or she's telling investigators what they want to hear to save her own life. Because here's the reality. Alicia Andrews is staring down life in prison. No parole, no second chances. When the feds came knocking, she was facing the kind of time that makes people say anything to get a deal. And that's exactly what she allegedly did. She started talking. And once she started, she didn't stop. She gave names, dates, locations, financial details. She allegedly told them about a bounty system that existed for high-profile targets in Jacksonville. She claimed money was being moved through legitimate businesses to fund street operations. And she pointed directly at one person as the alleged source of the funding, Yungeen Ace. Let that name sink in for a second. Yungeen Ace, one of the biggest artists to come out of Jacksonville. A rapper with major label backing, millions of streams, sold-out shows, and a legitimate music career. This isn't some random street dude. This is a man who's built an empire. According to Andrews' alleged statement, Ace didn't personally order the hit. He didn't hand someone a gun and tell them to go handle business. But what he allegedly did was put up $50,000 as a bounty on Foolio's life. And that money, according to her claims, moved through multiple hands until it reached the people who carried out the murder. Now, if you know anything about how these operations work, you know why that's significant. Because by keeping distance between himself and the actual crime, Ace would theoretically be insulated. There's no direct order, no paper trail linking him to the murder, just money moving through intermediaries who can't directly tie him to the act. That's not amateur hour. That's allegedly the kind of sophisticated operation that organized crime syndicates use. And if it's true, it shows a level of planning and intelligence that most street-level operations don't have. But here's the question that keeps coming up. Is Andrews telling the truth? Or is she fabricating fabricating details to make herself seem more valuable to prosecutors. According to Andrews' confession, there was an entire system in place. High-profile targets in Jacksonville allegedly had prices on their heads, and when someone wanted a problem solved, money would start moving through the network. She claimed the payment structure worked in layers. At the top, you had the person putting up the initial bounty, allegedly Yungeen Ace in this case, with $50,000. That money didn't go directly to the shooters. It moved through lieutenants who coordinated operations. Then it went to people like Isaiah Chance, who allegedly handled logistics. And finally, it reached the people who actually pulled the triggers. Andrews claimed she was supposed to receive $10,000 for her role. Chance was allegedly promised $25,000. The shooters were supposed to get $15,000 each, but here's where the math gets weird. When you add all that up, it doesn't equal $50,000. It's way more. So either there were other funding sources, or Andrews' numbers are off. And if her numbers don't add up, what else in her story doesn't add up? Here's where things get really serious. The FBI and Tampa Police Department allegedly have hours and hours of interrogation footage. And according to sources, Andrews didn't just give them surface-level information. She went deep. She allegedly described the entire operation from start to finish. How they planned it. How they tracked Foolio's movements. How they coordinated the logistics of getting people to Tampa. How they communicated without leaving obvious trails. She gave investigators a roadmap of how this whole thing allegedly went down, but it gets even more intense. She claimed she had evidence. Recordings of phone calls between Isaiah Chance and ATK higher-ups. Text messages showing coordination. Bank records and transaction details that allegedly prove money was moving specifically for this purpose. If that evidence exists and it's legitimate, this case is over. Not just for Andrews, not just for Chance, for everyone she named. Because once you have hard evidence, recordings, financial documents, communications, it's almost impossible to defend against that in court. But if that evidence doesn't exist, or if it's not as concrete as prosecutors claim, then Andrews' entire testimony falls apart. And that's what defense attorneys are banking on. This is where the FBI really started paying attention, because this isn't just about one murder anymore. If Andrews' allegations are accurate, this could be evidence of money laundering, racketeering, and organized crime. The kind of charges that fall under RICO statutes. The kind of charges that can bring down entire organizations. She allegedly told investigators how money moved through legitimate business transactions to disguise its real purpose. Associates of Yungeen Ace would receive payments for studio time, features, promotional work, or other services. Then that cash would allegedly get funneled into street operations. She gave them account numbers. She gave them transaction dates. She gave them names of people who allegedly received payments. And if investigators can connect those financial transactions to criminal activity, they can seize assets, freeze accounts, and build a case that goes way beyond just Foolio's murder. But here's the thing that keeps bothering me. How does Alicia Andrews, who's supposed to be just a girlfriend with no criminal background, know this much about money laundering operations? How does she know account numbers, transaction details, and the inner workings of an alleged financial conspiracy? That level of knowledge raises red flags. Either she was way more involved than she's letting on, or she's getting fed information by investigators who are building the narrative they want. And if it's the latter, that's a huge problem for the prosecution. One of the wildest parts of Andrews' alleged confession is her claim that she attended planning meetings, and these weren't happening in trap houses or abandoned buildings. According to her, these meetings took place at recording studios, restaurants, and private homes, just regular gatherings where life and death decisions were allegedly being made. She described attendees. She described what was discussed. She gave details about how decisions were made and who gave final approval for operations. In her telling, this was all happening in plain sight, disguised as normal social activity. But think about that for a second. If you're running a sophisticated criminal enterprise, are you really bringing random girlfriends to strategy meetings? Are you really discussing murder plots at restaurants where anyone could overhear? That doesn't make sense for people who are supposed to be operating at a high level. Defense attorneys are going to hammer on this point, because if Andrews was really present at all these meetings, that makes her a much bigger player than she's admitting. And if she wasn't actually there, then she's making things up. Either way, it damages her credibility. Andrews also allegedly gave investigators insight into how social media was being used. She claimed that rap lyrics, Instagram posts, and even emoji usage were coded communications. That ATK was using these platforms to coordinate operations and send messages without being obvious. Prosecutors love this kind of evidence. It helps them build timelines. It shows patterns of behavior. It demonstrates intent. They can point to a post from 3 days before the murder and say, "See, this was them planning it." But here's the problem with social media evidence. Courts have been pushing back on it hard. Rap lyrics have been ruled as artistic expression, not confessions. Posts can be interpreted 100 different ways. And what what looks like coordination to a prosecutor might just be regular social media activity to a jury. So even if Andrew's interpretation of this digital activity is accurate, it might not hold up in court. Because at the end of the day, you need more than suspicious Instagram captions to prove someone funded a murder. Let's be brutally honest about Alicia Andrews' situation. She's facing life without parole. That's not a maybe. That's not a possibility. That's what she's staring down at if she doesn't cooperate. When you're in that position, you'll say whatever you need to say to get a lighter sentence. You'll give prosecutors the story they want to hear. And if they suggest names or connections, you'll confirm them because that's your only path to freedom. There are also reports about the interrogation tactics used on Andrews. Claims that investigators told her other people were already snitching, that she needed to talk first or get left holding the bag, that they had evidence tying her to the murder, whether she cooperated or not. If any of that coercion can be proven, her entire confession might get thrown out, because coerced confessions aren't admissible. But proving coercion is extremely difficult, especially when it's your word against law enforcement. So we're left with this question. Is Alicia Andrews telling the truth because she genuinely knows what happened? Or is she telling the version of the truth that prosecutors want because it's her only way out? Here's what bothers me about the Yungeen Ace angle. This is a man who has managed to stay out of serious legal trouble for years. While other artists from Jacksonville were getting locked up, Ace was building a legitimate career. He signed deals. He went on tour. He invested in businesses. He did everything you're supposed to do to transition from the streets to success. Why would someone in that position risk it all over beef? Violence doesn't help him at this stage. It only puts his freedom and his entire future in jeopardy. He's making millions from music. He's got too much to lose. So maybe the real story is simpler. Maybe lower-level ATK members acted independently, trying to prove loyalty or gain favor. Maybe they used Ace's name without his knowledge. Maybe Andrews is throwing his name out there because prosecutors wanted a big target and she gave them one. Because let's be real, if you're cooperating with the feds and you give them nobodies, what kind of deal are you getting? But if you give them a platinum-selling rapper with millions of followers, now you've got real leverage. Now you're valuable. The FBI has a proven strategy when it comes to organized crime. They start at the bottom. They find someone desperate, someone facing serious time, and they flip them. Then they use that person's testimony to move up the chain. They flip the next person, and the next, until they reach the top. It's the same playbook they used against the mob, against drug cartels, against gang organizations, and now they're allegedly using it against ATK. But here's the danger in that approach. If your foundation is built on the testimony of desperate people trying to save themselves, what happens when those testimonies contradict each other? What happens when the evidence doesn't support the claims? The entire case can collapse, and if innocent people get swept up in the process, if careers get destroyed based on false allegations, that's not justice. That's just another example of the system failing the people it's supposed to protect. Yungeen Ace's legal team isn't sitting back waiting to see what happens. Their entire strategy is going to be attacking Alicia Andrews' credibility from every angle possible. They'll highlight her desperation, her changing story, her self-interest in cooperating. They'll point out every inconsistency in her timeline, every detail that doesn't add up, every claim she makes can't be backed up with hard evidence. And they'll demand proof. Not just her words, not just her claims. They'll want recordings, text messages, financial documents, hard evidence that can't be explained away as normal business transactions. If the prosecution can't deliver that level of proof, Andrews' testimony crumbles. And without her testimony, the case against Ace might fall apart entirely. But even if Ace beats every charge, even if he's found not guilty, the damage might already be done. Because in the court of public opinion, accusations alone can destroy careers. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture for a minute. How many times have we seen this exact story play out in hip-hop? A young black man grows up in poverty, make it out through music, builds wealth, build a brand, creates opportunities for himself and his community. And then the system comes for him. Sometimes it's tax evasion. Sometimes it's old charges they dig up. Sometimes it's testimony from desperate informants looking for deals. But the pattern is always the same. Success makes you a target. I'm not saying Yungeen Ace is innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty. What I'm saying is that the system has a documented history of using questionable witnesses to bring down successful people in hip-hop culture. And whether you're innocent or guilty, once those allegations hit the news, your career takes damage. Your reputation takes damage. Your freedom is at risk. At the end of the day, let's not lose sight of the real victims here. Foolio is dead. His family is grieving. They lost a son, a brother, a father. That pain is real regardless of how this case plays out. If Andrews is telling the truth, then a murder-for-hire operation was allegedly running in Jacksonville, and nobody stopped it until it was too late. If she's lying, then then innocent people are being dragged through investigations, having their names destroyed, facing charges based on fabricated testimony. Either way, real people are suffering. And this case exposes just how broken the system can be, how easy it is to weaponize desperate people against others, how allegations alone can ruin lives, how justice sometimes gets lost in the game of who can cut the best deal. So here's where I want to leave you. This case isn't over. Trials haven't happened yet. Evidence is still being gathered. Stories are still being told. But eventually, the truth is going to come out. Maybe it'll be in a courtroom. Maybe it'll be in the streets. Maybe it'll be years from now when someone writes the real story of what happened. Until then, I want to know what you think. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you believe Alicia Andrews' allegations? Is she telling the truth about Yungeen Ace and this alleged bounty system? Or is she lying to save herself, throwing everyone under the bus to avoid life in prison? Because the way this case unfolds is going to set a precedent, not just for Jacksonville, not just for hip-hop, but for how the justice system deals with allegations, informants, and the intersection of street culture and legitimate success. So stay tuned. Keep watching. Keep questioning. Because in cases like this, the official story and the real story are rarely the same thing. And remember, in this game, everybody thinks they're playing chess until the feds flip the whole board. Stay safe out there. Peace out there.